Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 2019 film Villains, and when I'm doing this review, I watched it on Hulu, and that's the only place I had seen it. Maybe it's somewhere else, but of the streaming services I have, just saw it on Hulu. So I haven't heard a whole lot about this film, which was kind of weird to me going into watching this because Bill Skarsgard is in it, and he is in a major role in this, one of the main characters. So I was like, why have I not heard about this yet? I mean, Bill Skarsgard is a big deal, especially in horror right now. So I don't know. It was weird. But then I watched it and I was like, okay, I understand. I had high hopes for the film for the fact that, Bill Skarsgard was in it, but also the fact that how the film was made in a sense, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. But in the end, I thought the film was okay. I was let down. I had high hopes, and it did not kind of live up to that expectation, so I was a little bit disappointed. But like I always say, every film is worth watching at least once to decide if you like it or not. My wife watched it with me. She quite liked it. She liked it quite a bit, and I've seen a few other people who have said they loved the film. Some people saying it was their favorite film they watched this year, or one of the favorite films they watched this year. So check it out yourself. Make your own opinion. So I will not be doing spoilers for this since it is such a new movie, and I know a lot of people have not seen it, so I'll just throw some things out there. Written and directed by Dan Berk and Robert Olsen. Now, Dan Berk had done Stakeland 2, and Robert Olsen did Don't Kill It, which I have not seen. I saw the first Stakeland. I have not seen Stakeland 2 yet. I heard it's okay. And then together they worked on the film Body. Like I said, Bill Skarsgard is in this one, and this was the same year as It Chapter 2 came out, as well as Castle Rock Season 2 that he was also in, which he's an awesome actor. I mean, he does a great job in this film. So there are four main adult actors in the film, and I thought they all did at least decent. Two of them I thought were okay. Skarsgård was great, and then Kira Sedgwick is in the film. And typically, I've not really liked Kira Sedgwick all that much, and I know it's kind of a dumb thing, but like her accent really bothers me, and I know that's such like a childish thing, and it's kind of stupid, but just the thickness of her accent just kind of bothers me. I don't know what it is. It's just something I have a hard time listening to. I don't know if anyone else out there has those types of things, but her performance in Villains is great. Like, she was the standout performance of that movie. Every time she was on screen, I was floored by her performance. She was phenomenal. She did such a great job. I mean, like I said, Bill Skarsgård was really good in this. Kira Sedgwick, even better. Like, she did a great job with it. So Kira Sedgwick's been in a lot of films, but some of them being Born on the 4th of July, Murder in the First, The Woodsman, and The Possession. Just a sampling of it. So this script was actually picked up from Blacklist. Now, I don't know if people know what Blacklist is, but it's basically a website for people who are not already in the film industry to go and market their scripts. So it's very much, undiscovered talent. Now, I know about this because I had actually put a script on there at one point. No one picked it up. Big surprise. There's so many scripts on there, I'm sure, that do not get picked up. But it was cool for me to be doing this research and find out that something legitimately got picked up and made from that site. So that was awesome. And that's what put my hopes so high, because typically studios just want to work with people they've already worked with before. And in my mind, in order for them to work with people they haven't worked with before, new blood, new talent, it would take a very good script to make that happen. Now, maybe the script was a lot better than what the film ended up being. I don't know. And maybe there was something with the fact that the people who wrote the script were then able to direct it, and maybe someone else should have directed it. Although now that I say that, I feel like the directing was actually pretty good. I mean, cinematography was good. Directing was pretty solid. Like, I don't know. I don't know if they shaved things out of the story. They edited stuff out that they had shot. I don't know. But it felt like there were things missing to this film. And it felt very stagnant a lot of the times. So that would bring me to the synopsis. Real quick, I want to be as vague as possible, but it's a little spoiler-ish on the synopsis, but it's stuff that's in the trailer and out there that's being promoted before people see the film anyway. So it's basically about a couple who are on the lam, and their car breaks down, and they find a house that they break into, and the people who own the house end up coming home. Now, while they're there, they find out that the couple whose house they broke into, they kind of have, they're not normal people. They have a secret. And that's it. That's all I'm going to tell you. So, very intriguing setup. And I think one of the biggest things for my letdown with the film is that I felt like that secret wasn't as big as I wanted it to be, or as interesting as I wanted it to be. I mean, it could have been if they had fleshed it out further. I feel like they introduced the secret, and then you're just like, oh, that's kind of interesting / disturbing. And then they kind of just stay at that one note idea, basically. It's just kind of that idea. They don't go very far into why, and far into, any really development in the film, to be honest. I mean, there is development in characters, mainly the initial couple. They develop, they kind of change, so that is good. So I like watching their characters kind of become different people, develop. I don't want to say too much about it, but that aspect is good. But I just felt like the overall, like that big secret, the big, plot line really needed to be moved more, and it wasn't. So, it has a start that's kind of a mix of goofy and intense, and I feel like that kind of gets maintained throughout the film, for the most part. The goofy for sure, the intense comes and goes, but it sets a tone. The way the film starts, it sets a tone, and it kind of carries that tone throughout. So I think maybe another one of my issues with the film is that kind of goofiness to it, and it being kind of described as like a horror comedy. I don't think it services the story all that well, to be honest. I think if you take the comedic stuff out of it, which honestly the comedy isn't very funny to me. So if you take the comedy out of it, you can focus more on maybe being like a horror drama, and it just being more of an intense situation, which I think would help ratchet things up, make things more intense, more unsettling. Just saying. Just that's my opinion. But like I said, I know people who quite enjoyed it. Early on, I thought it's odd to see Skarsgard in a less intense and serious role, because he plays kind of a more light, not as intense and not as intelligent role. So it's a very different role from what I've seen him in typically. But I thought he did a really good job kind of doing that comedic, relaxed role. I mean, he's obviously an actor who has a lot of range. So awesome on him. The film has a bit of a frantic start with some light, but slightly mystery insinuating music. That's one of the things that I really picked up on. Is I liked how they, for the tone they were going for, I like how they did the music. Because like I said, it's kind of like very light music, almost a little bit, jaunty, but then it also has this slight tinge of like a mystery insinuation within the music. And it sounds a little weird for me to say that, but if you've seen the film, or if you do see the film, you'll understand what I mean, especially in the beginning. It seems like the film is relying mainly on the way the characters act as quirky people for the comedy. And that's one of the things I was talking about. I didn't really like the comedy that much, because the comedy, I think, was being derived clearly, or solely pretty much, from the quirkiness of the characters, not from things that are said that are funny, or things that are particularly done that are funny, but just this person's quirky, they're kind of a quirky character, just laugh at them being a quirky person. And that doesn't really, for me, that comedy doesn't really work, especially not in the context of this story. I just felt like it didn't mesh. There's an interesting chess match that kind of goes on between characters in this, and that's one of the things that kind of drives the interest in the beginning. Now, I have said that I was kind of let down by the film. I was like, but you are interested in the film the whole time, or at least I was, and that does say something. I at no point was I like, oh, I feel like quitting on this film, or I want to, go walk away and do something in the kitchen while I just listen to it. I was engaged the whole time just because I wanted to know where it went. It's just when everything was said and done, I was kind of like, I would have liked more. Things get weird, and as events unfold, you keep wondering how much further it's going to go down the path. That speaks to the whole, like, you know, maintaining engagement with the film. There are interesting scenes that go on too long, so they start to feel stagnant and not interesting anymore. That is one of the biggest problems I had with this film. There will be interesting scenes that happen, and this happens numerous times in the film. There's an interesting scene, and you're like, oh, that's, you know, that really pulls you in, and you're like, I'm very intrigued. But then they just stretch the scene out way too long, and nothing further develops. Nothing further happens. It's just staying in that moment of this idea that's thrown out to you, and you're just like, are we going somewhere? Like, is there something else you're trying to tell me in this scene, or you're just trying to hammer home the thing you've just said and already hammered home well enough? And there are a lot of scenes like that. They just go on way too long, and there's not enough substance. It started to feel like they were trying to stretch the film to hit a certain runtime, and they didn't have the story for that. Although, with the story set up, there could have been a lot of story for that. There are so many paths they could have gone down with this story and chose not to. At pretty much every turn, they chose probably the most boring route they could have taken. Sucks that they did that. There's a situation some characters end up in, and the way they pop up out of that situation would not actually happen. It is very fake. I was very much taken out of the movie at that point, and I'm being very vague, obviously, because I don't want to give any spoilers, but you'll know what I mean. I mean, listen, I chose my words carefully on that. There's a situation some characters end up in, and the way they pop up out of that situation wouldn't actually work. So, if you've seen it, you might know what I'm talking about. If you do see it, keep that in mind. There is a cool shot at the end. There's a really cool shot at the end, which I was like, oh, that's pretty nice. And that speaks to what I was saying. The directing, the cinematography, pretty solid. Like I was saying, the acting for the most part, 2 people did a really good job. 2 people were fine. So, now, one thing I did not see coming, and this kind of contradicts something I said before. I said by the end of the film, I was kind of like, I wanted more. Now, I liked the very end of the film. It just felt like you needed a lot more before it for it to really keep your interest leading into that, and also for it to have even more of an impact. There is a kind of emotional ending to it that I did not see coming, that I think is well written and I think is well executed. But everything before it, like I was saying, it's stretched out, it's stagnant, the story's not going down the paths that are most interesting, or even the second most interesting option, or third, or it's... yeah. So, anyway. There's a point in this that everyone has at least something that prompts them to act for the sake of good. So, that is an interesting aspect of the film. There's a significant focus on relationships and how they insulate people from the outside world by creating a shared reality. Which, if you think about it, that's very true to real life. You know, when you... especially nowadays with the whole COVID life, if you're not going out all that much, like, you know, people like myself, you know, your world is very small at that point. Like, I'm still working, but I'm working solely from home. I'm not really interacting with the people I used to work with, or I still work with them, but used to physically in the same space work with in my office. So you feel more detached. And then what your world, what your reality becomes is very, very small. And this film kind of takes that concept and looks at it within the context of romantic relationships, of how 2 people's relationships and 2 separate couples' relationships can really insulate them from the rest of the world and create their own reality where they're not necessarily interacting with other people. They're not necessarily acting in the interest of other people. It's just their little, I don't want to say duality, but that's wrong. Their partnership, basically. So, just saying. That is an interesting aspect of it. This film could have come off as quite disturbing if the tone was different. And this is what I was talking about keeping it kind of like goofy and light. Just highlights how directing, acting, and music can take certain events and make it play many different ways. And that is interesting. I would love to see this film taken and the directing style and the character quirkiness changed and the music changed, but have the exact same events otherwise happen in the film. And it would be interesting because it would go from like kind of light and comedic to very dark and very disturbing. And this film, when you watch it, just think about that. Like, it really highlights how if you just tweak a few things, you can have the exact same story, the exact same events, and it plays in a totally different light. So that's just an interesting thing. So that's basically all I have to say about Villains. I mean, out of 5 stars with half stars in play, I will level with you. I'm between a 2.5 and a 3. In the end, I'm going to go with the 2.5 because I truly do feel conflicted on if I liked it or didn't like it. There are definitely some things, like I talked about, that I really did enjoy about the film, including the ending, but it's just like the ending felt like it was on an island, basically, and it's just like, oh, I got this good ending, but there's all this other stuff that was just like boring and just drawn out and just didn't really feel like it worked that well. But yeah, so I'm gonna go 2.5 on this. But like I said, everyone just check it out for yourself. I know there will be people out there who love this film, and that's great. Everyone should love there should be some people who love every film, pretty much. So yeah. But anyway, that said, thank you for checking this out. But do me a favor real quick. Hit the subscribe button if you like this review video or any video I have on my channel, of which I have a lot, because that's your best way to repay me. It literally takes you a second. It is totally painless for you, and it means a lot for my channel. I'm very appreciative whenever I get the email telling me who has subscribed to my channel, and I legitimately look at that. So just know that. Also, if you're going to do that, just hit the notification bell. That way you know when I'm putting up a new review video or unboxing or doing a live stream. Yeah, so anyway, I appreciate you taking your time to check this out regardless. And until next time, keep it brutal.